Hey everybody, Dr. Gail here, bringing you some more vital stuff to help you get healthy and feel great. Today we're going to talk to Brett Elliott, who I met down in New Zealand for the first time. He's a fascinating guy, is an herbalist, and knows tons of stuff about how to use herbs, diet, and exercise to really get you feeling great. So we had a super conversation, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did.
Thanks so much again for joining us. I know how busy you are, so I really appreciate it. I was trying to think about when we first met, but it's got to be like 10, 12 years ago.
Probably, yeah, 2014, 2015. Yeah,
Yeah, something like
mm,
that.
yeah.
Time flies when you're having a great time. Um, do me a favor and just really briefly, I'd love to hear your story and share that with everyone because I found it fascinating when we first met. And I know you've come a long way since then, certainly in your career and your business that you've been running. So I'd love to share your background with people because I think it's very unique.
Yes, I didn't get into medicine right away. As a young man, I got into the labour force, and
Hmm.
I did 10 years really of labour work. And because of my build and my structure, I underestimated the strength of my back, and or overestimated the strength of my back, and my lower discs gave out, and I had three discs in my spine that were herniated. One was worn completely. The L5S1 was gone completely, and the surgeon said to me, "The only solution is to fuse those vertebrae with titanium, you know, structures in place." And I said to him, "Isn't there an alternative?" I was 25 at the time, and I thought,
Jeepers.
surely there must be an alternative. But I got the cold hard no. There's nothing else you can do. We have to operate. We need to do it right away. And he got quite angry with me,
Mm.
and that was my first real experience of the lack of options available. And so I guess I must have in the back of my mind thought, I've got to look for something. And I went to the library and I found there was a whole aisle of books on alternative medicines, diet, healing, philosophy and religion. They're all in the same row. And so I just started reading. Yeah.
It's now
Um,
religion for us.
right. It is too. Yeah. Yeah. In a way.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
did you have the surgery? I have to ask.
No, I turned it down.
Yeah.
I was determined to heal myself.
And I think that was what struck me when we first met because, I had a similar path. Um, well, first of all, I found your products when I was in New Zealand on a trip. I found the little sachets of what was called Detox, I believe. And, at first it threw me off because detox to us, in the States anyway, usually means you're coming off of drugs or alcohol or you're in a rehab program. Whereas I've come to learn that it's really about getting the toxins, all of the types of toxins out of our body using herbs. And we're going to get into talking about that. But when we met and I heard your story about your back, it rang true to me because the same thing happened to me, right? As a
Right.
gymnast at a really young age, um, sort of sustained many injuries, knee, back, neck, shoulder, every part of the body because it was just a beating. And I too was told that same thing. We have to fuse your back.
Right.
And I said no. And it wasn't an easy road, to come back from an injury like that, particularly of the spine. We can have a whole nother session just on that alone. But I learned a lot about healing, recovery, um, the benefits of working out in the water, and all sorts of things, including herbal medicine, which is why I'm just thrilled to share your experience with everyone because you've gone deeper than anyone I know. I think what you've created is just simply amazing. You clearly have the entrepreneurial spirit as well. So you've managed to, not only improve your own life, but so many other people have benefited from everything that you've done. So I appreciate you sharing your personal story with us. Thank you for that.
It's interesting how many practitioners or people in the profession have got into it because of their own journey, their own experience, and finding the alternatives or the ways or the methods themselves. It seems to be very, very common amongst the industry.
Well, there's really no other way. And I think today our healthcare system is fairly broken. And I think more and more people are turning to self-care and understanding not only how to recover from an injury, let's say, but how to stay healthy and be our own personal best. Some of that we can't help because it's genetics, right? So a lot of it we can by lifestyle, what we eat, and how we exercise. And I'd love for you to share more about number one, how we eat, and the things that we eat that can help us stay healthy, building our immune system, and even preventing cancer, which your most recent podcast was fascinating about the natural killer cells. We'll talk about that. But also, just how important it is every day to supplement your food sources with good herbs and vitamins and things like that so that we can stay healthy. Because today's world is crazy. We're traveling all over. We're exposed to germs. We all learned that in a big lesson. So I just would love for you to expand on some of those topics.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to what you originally said about detox and detoxification, as we think that it's only when you go into rehab, detoxing from alcohol or drugs. But the whole detox arena is much, much wider than that. And I think the mainstream definition of detox needs to be expanded to include a lot more toxins than alcohol and drugs. And
well, let's talk about that for a second. It's all the stuff that we're exposed to. Like, for example, I don't think people are aware of how, for lack of a better word, how dirty our food is. It's full of preservatives and chemicals and toxins. So I've come to embrace your linguistics of detoxing and detoxification, not only applied to drugs and alcohol, but detoxing our bodies from what we're exposed to.
Yes, well, over the years, I've had a lot of skeptics around detoxing because they've seen that mainstream definition, but also a lot of the mainstream sites will say that there's no merit in detoxification and that your body detoxes itself. And so I went on a journey a few years ago to write a book about, detoxing and the need for it. And really what I did was I covered off a whole bunch of toxins that we were exposed to and how they cause disease in the body and how it's been completely overlooked. And one of the most common things that we probably know about is ultra-processed food. And the fact that, I don't know what it's like in the US, but I think it's probably much like the supermarkets in New Zealand. They did a survey here and they found that 70% of the products in the supermarket fall into the category of ultra-processed food. And Harvard did a big study on it, and they studied 45,000 people over 9 years. And they found a direct all-cause mortality link to ultra-processed food. And of course, the most common things that they linked them to was cancer and heart disease.
Of course.
Which are our two biggest killers. So,
of course. And then if you add in there sugar as a toxin, which again, I think most people don't understand, sugar causes those insulin spikes, and those insulin spikes are just horrific for the heart, the brain, vital organs in our body. When you speak about those toxins and ultra-processed foods, one of the things I've noticed, actually living both in the US and spending a lot of time in New Zealand, I've noticed an evolution in New Zealand. Unfortunately, towards more processed foods as opposed to away from it and sticking to the, homegrown organic fruits and vegetables that you find on the outside perimeter of a supermarket.
Mm.
All the aisles are filled with the processed food.
Yes, and even the produce, like you say, non-organic produce. They did another survey here, and they found that 75% of the produce still has chemicals, pesticides on the foods, and yet they'll say there's allowable levels that's okay, but when you combine those residues with the other toxins that are in the processed foods, you've got a cocktail really that the body has to deal with. So I don't think that information's really clear at all about what's safe and what isn't safe.
Well, I would
Mm.
agree with that. I think we have a lot to learn there, but I think if we could break it down to some practical tips, because I know you do that quite well, um, let's break it down into bite-sized pieces
Mm.
that people can wrap their arms around. So, would you recommend that everybody first detoxify the body? Like, do you have to go through that process? Or can you just slowly start to integrate healthier foods, more water, all of those things?
You can do it slowly over time, but really to shift the body's chemistry, the body's biochemistry, and to get things to happen on a cellular level, a detox program or a detox process is really the way to kickstart the whole system into healing. Because you want to get the main toxins obviously come in processed foods, and sugar is the big one. But normally I would say to do 2 weeks to a month of absolutely zero processed food is the way to go. So fruits, vegetables, meats, nuts are okay. Anything that comes from nature in its whole form, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not only that you get a lot less toxins, being those additives, but you'll also get the full matrix of the food. And so you're going to get a lot more nutrition as well. And it's when we combine those two things, detoxifying, reducing the toxin intake, but also a much better nutrient profile going into the body, that the healing process really starts to happen as well. So it's really good to do a program. Hmm.
So, do you recommend doing them in parallel, or do you do the detox first and then start the healthy eating? I mean, what are you eating during the detox? Walk us through what the detox looks like.
It's good to do them in parallel. So normally what I'd say is take 3 or 4 days, or maybe even a week, to wean yourself off those foods, because quite often the processed foods are the ones that we get addicted to or hooked on. We get into a cycle. So, and usually there's a few in the pantry or in the fridge. So it's good to spend a week eliminating them from your routine before you start taking the herbs. And then taking the herbs over the 2 weeks alongside that clean, what we call a clean diet, I guess, that's when the magic happens. And a lot of people find that their chronic inflammatory or metabolic imbalances resolve themselves quite quickly within 2 weeks. And when I first put the programs together and started seeing the results with people, it was like miracles were happening. Just incredible things with, things like Crohn's disease or chronic fatigue, just resolving themselves when they're meant to be almost, impossible to heal. But I think it's that innate power in the body, that healing power that's, within us, just needs to be activated.
It is incredible what the body can do, and I think you and I both share that, as well, the respect of our bodies and what we can do. I think for me, what I learned personally was much of the inflammation in my body was causing issues, joint pains. I would come out of the operating room and literally everything would hurt after being in there for 8 hours. Of course, I had,
Yeah.
a bagel for breakfast, had
Mhm.
something, can't even remember what, something fast for lunch, and then again,
Yeah.
something very high in carbohydrates, quick and easy for dinner. When I was a resident, I literally ate angel hair pasta and
Right.
prepared sauce every night for 5 years.
Hmm.
Not good, not at
No.
all good. So
And
I've learned that the clean eating is an important part. It's not
you,
easy in the beginning.
you don't often think of things like bread and pasta as processed food or ultra processed food, but they are. Yeah. And a lot of the breads now, they have a lot of additives put into them. They're not just traditional bread. So one thing I recommend is if you are eating bread or you want to continue eating bread long term, is to look for things that you can get from a bakery, sourdough in particular. That's
Croissants.
really good. Well, yeah, maybe, but sourdough bread is particularly good. Yeah, for the gut.
Walk me through what you ate today.
I quite often actually fast in the mornings, so I'm a big believer in intermittent fasting.
Me
And
too.
you're right, right. It's
Yes.
very, very good, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
And
once you start, it's easy to do, actually. The morning is really easy for me to do.
yes, yeah. Traditionally, we're taught that you need a big breakfast to get you through the day, but it's just not true, is it? You can get through on very little for most of the day.
Yeah,
And
that's true. Okay, back to breakfast. Nothing.
yeah,
Next.
nothing. Generally nothing. But if I do have something, it'll be a piece of fruit, a banana, or maybe an orange or something like that. Just a little bit of carbohydrate, and then lunch I normally make a smoothie.
Mm.
And smoothies, it's really good to put fruit or vegetables, but always to have something from the vegetable source. So I usually go for greens,
Hmm.
spinach or kale, and then I'll get a lemon or a bit of pineapple and blend that with, and I usually put some herbs into that, some of our herbal mixture into that, or a bit of hemp protein. That's a really good source of protein. And just blend it up with some ice. So that's my lunch. And then dinners are normally, I mostly vegetable based, but I do have a little bit of chicken or a fish maybe once a week. So I'm
Once a
largely
week.
plant based. Mm,
So a typical dinner
yeah.
would be.
Usually stir fried vegetables.
Mhm.
Yeah. Usually a curry. I'll often have curry like 3 or 4 times a week.
And
And I think that's
what kind of oils are you using?
coconut oil, mostly coconut oil, and sometimes cold pressed olive oil. So I'll use those too. And don't buy any store bought kind of dressings. I usually make an aioli,
Hmm.
and sometimes use tomato paste or tomato puree because I think that's another really good. That's slightly processed food, but that can make a good sauce. So it's really good to use your own herbs and spices, and learn basically to cook is another thing that a lot of people fail to do these days, I think.
I know that we're talking a lot about food, but I've come to know that it is kind of the bane of our existence. I mean, it's all about the fuel that we put in our bodies. The body can do a great job processing it if we give it the
Mhm.
right stuff. If we don't, we just really screw it up.
Absolutely. And the key to it is to get things in their natural form as they come from nature. And if we can feed our body like that, that the way the body absorbs the nutrients and assimilates them is just so much better.
Mm.
Incredibly different than the way our body heals and responds to food like that.
What do you think is the strongest, or, and maybe this is just a naive question, but the most powerful herb that you've come across?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I knew it
There's so
would
many
be because
herbs
it's the
you can fall in love
combination that's
with.
so important.
Yeah. Yes. Early on, I really fell in love with a herb called wormwood. And
Oh,
it sort of says what it does. It deworms the body, but it also protects the liver. And it's got this amazing bitter taste to it that you can grow to like. And it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it helps treat parasites in the body. And people find it when they do a detox, the wormwood component, it gives you lucidity in your dreams and intuition, which is a really nice byproduct of detoxing, is that better intuition and clarity.
Do you think that's related to sleep?
Yeah, possibly. But I think because a lot of people, when they have liver disturbances, they have trouble sleeping.
Mm.
Yeah.
And also, I think when you detox, you probably get more REM sleep.
Deeper sleep. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people with insomnia find they sleep much better. I think it's also to do with the gut health, the gut brain connection that we've all been talking about in the last couple of years. There's when you've got parasites or you've got bacterial overgrowth in the gut, there's a mental disturbance that takes place, like a restlessness. And so that's possibly a big part of that as well.
I think it also is related to inflammation because you have this general disturbance in the gut, but that causes an overall kind of environment in the body of inflammation, an inflammatory response, which goes through your whole body. And it makes it difficult to sleep. If you're in pain, you're constantly turning from side to side. Something is wakening you during your sleep, so you never get to the deep stages of sleep.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I've heard of a great analogy for the digestive process as it's like composting. So I don't know if you do that much where you are, but we quite often have a bin outside where we put the food scraps and compost them, and they end up on the garden. And so a really good golden rule for your gut health is if the food you're eating can't go into the compost, then really shouldn't go into your body, because your body does almost the same process. It decomposes the food. And then, what comes out of the body is like manure. It can go onto in theory, it can go onto the garden. So it's a similar process. And if you put anything in your body that can't go in the compost, then your body will really struggle.
Oh, so interesting.
Yeah.
And I know the same applies to our pets. So do you have a line of detox for our pets, because they're not eating very well?
Yeah, that's interesting. No, I haven't really developed anything like that. I know with dogs, you can give dogs virtually the same things that you give humans medicinally. So with herbs, you can treat dogs with the same herbs, basically.
That
It's
would
just
be
getting the
interesting.
dose right. Yeah.
Yeah. Something
But
else
it is
for you
true
to
that if you're using processed food, your gut will struggle, and it's even the bread and the pasta, you get inflammation.
Darn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the natural killer cells that you were talking about in your recent podcast, because I love the natural killer cells. I think most people don't understand that, our bodies are constantly renewing itself, like our hair. Our hair falls out and then it regrows most of the time.
Yes. Yeah.
And the cells on the surface of our skin and, just everywhere in our gut, certain parts of the body cannot rejuvenate, that once those cells are gone, they're gone, like heart muscle, for example, brain cells. So we want to protect those, with all of our heart and soul.
Yes.
But we do have cells that kind of devolve and can go off and become cancer cells. And whether
Right.
that's a genetic cause or, there's multiple different reasons why we can get cancer. But the initial stages of that are the cells that become abnormal, and they start to divide abnormally. Now, our immune system can attack those cells because it can recognize that they're foreign and they're not normal, And so there's this process that's ongoing every day where an abnormal cell appears and the natural killer cells will actually kill that cell. And that's a
Yes.
nice balance that we have in our bodies. But I love the fact that you brought that up, because bolstering the immune system is really part of preventive, it's the core of preventive medicine and staying
Mm.
healthy. So I'd love for you to explore that a little bit with me in terms of, what you've found and how we
Yes.
can build our immune systems.
Yes, there's a couple of interesting things there, that we do know that there are things that we call carcinogens. In other words, they directly related to, there's a direct link to cancer, a causal link. And we also know that the immune system responds to things that we call antigens, like foreign particles or substances, whether they be viral or bacterial. But also some of these carcinogens can trigger the immune response. And that those cells that are abnormal present themselves like an invading cell. They have on their surface, they present themselves to the immune system as an antigen. And so the immune system will attack them and kill them using those killer T cells, those natural killer cells. And it's interesting that at the same time, we're having this big upsurge in autoimmune disease around the world.
Mm.
And so we know, or we don't know, the cause of a lot of these autoimmune diseases. So that immune system is so important, not just to control cancer, but also to keep us healthy if it's functioning correctly. And if we have too many foreign substances or chemicals or compounds or man-made things going into the body, they will present themselves as antigens. And we know that we get a lot of vaccines as well, which, they do a similar thing, cause the body to produce antigens. So we've got this big cocktail of antigens that the immune system has to deal with. And we do know that when we do fasting, that we allow the immune system to reset itself. So that's a really powerful part of doing a detox, is allowing the body to have a reduction in antigens to the degree where the immune system can actually start communicating correctly again with itself and identify those cells properly. So it's a really important thing, that whole process, getting a clear pathway for the immune system to function again correctly, especially when we want to control cancer.
I just think it's amazing what you said, and I agree with it totally. We're bombarded with carcinogens and antigens and toxins. That's what got me off on looking into the respiratory system, because it's yet another entry point in our body for stuff in the air, germs, allergens, and obviously toxins to enter our body, and it just wreaks havoc on our immune system. So, I'm on this exploratory journey to not only continue and maintain good health, but also help other people unleash their own ability to get healthy and feel better. Because once you feel good, there's nothing like it. I mean, you live a different life when you're feeling good, as opposed to when you wake up every day and something hurts and you're miserable and you're sleepy because you didn't sleep at night and you're grumpy.
Yes, yeah. Well, you can go through a checklist, and that's something I quite often suggest. I've got a checklist people can go through, and some of the things you don't think of that may be toxic to your body, like you say, you can be inhaling them. Fragrances, for example, scented candles or incense or deodorants, sprays, hairsprays, all these things that have got chemicals in them that you can be breathing in. Plastics, plastics, we can, microplastics. So,
Microplastics.
they're in the air that we breathe. It's incredible.
VOCs, volatile organic compounds. You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely. Yeah.
when you
Mm.
get behind a truck, a diesel truck, and it's spewing all that garbage into the air, and we
Yes.
inhale that, it's just so bad for our bodies. So,
Yes.
yeah, I
They've done
appreciate.
studies on that too. They've found that the cancer rates that are near freeways or motorways in industrial areas, the cancer rates are higher.
Oh yeah,
So the
yeah,
direct link. Mm.
no doubt, no doubt.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you. I'm just watching as you're expanding kind of this whole area of wellness to include bolstering the immune system, because I'm
Mm.
pretty passionate about that. It's funny having been a surgeon, and now moving into this other area, because in surgery, all you do is fix a problem all the time when it's really, gotten out of hand, right? Whether it's
Yes.
appendicitis or your gallbladder is inflamed or infected, a portion of the bowel is obstructed, I could go on. Um, but for me, at this stage of my career and my life, I'm much more fascinated by this whole aspect of medicine that is embryonic. We're learning a lot. I think you've been an incredible pioneer in the field. I really am just so happy that I met you. And obviously, I use your products, which I love. Um, and I think there's a lot more to come. Any other topics that you'd like to share with us? Anything
Well,
really
you just
special?
mentioned the gallbladder, and it just triggered in my mind. There's a whole other area where um, this whole detox and toxins in the body is largely overlooked. Because we know a lot of us around the world suffer with things like kidney stones or gallstones, which is an accumulation of a substance in the body. It's quite often calcium, in, for example, kidney stones, and gallstones and liver function that we suffer with things like fatty liver disease, and that's very, very common now. They say up to 40% of us, diabetes, pre-diabetes. So a lot of these diseases, these metabolic conditions,
Mm-hmm.
have an underlying gradual toxin build-up behind the scenes that causes them. And I think this is being largely overlooked as well. The fact that we can actually reverse some of these things and prevent them.
Well, it brings us obviously to metabolic, imbalance,
Mm,
and obesity, which is probably the world's largest crisis,
yes.
um, is obesity and childhood obesity. And now there's this just bonanza of usage of GLP-1s, which I'm kind of torn about. It's a provocative area of medicine, I think. And, again, I think we're sitting here having a conversation about all the different ways we can naturally change that. Food,
Hmm.
exercise, those two things alone can go a long way for metabolic disease.
Absolutely.
Um, I'm you know, my background includes a master's degree in endocrinology. So anytime you wind up messing with the endocrine system, which the GLP-1s do, there's no free lunch. You're going to have some other problem. Something else is going to happen. And it just scares me that there's millions of people using these drugs. I think in combination with diet and exercise, there's probably a role, you know,
Yeah.
uh, that's very beneficial to get people started on that path. But honestly, I'm much more an advocate for diet, exercise, and really getting your body back in balance.
Yes. Well, it's a thing with holistic medicine is, which is like herbal medicine, is the body and mind are so connected and so linked with disease that you really have to look at, I guess, okay, we need to change our habits, but in order to change our habits, we need to change our thinking. And in order to change our thinking, we need to use some kind of method or technique, and I think that's an area that's often overlooked is, okay, we need to detox our bodies, but it's a mental hurdle for us to get over those habits that the body has developed. And that's a struggle, isn't it? It's almost like we've got the mind and the body as two separate things.
Yeah.
The body sometimes tends to take over, and the mind is in the back seat. And
Yeah.
I think that's what the food industry aims to do. I think is to get our body hooked on the wrong things
By controlling our mind.
Yeah.
The desire to eat food with sugar, for example. I mean, that desire, is so strong. It's stronger in the lab when they've tested animals and they've given them, sugar and they've given them cocaine. I mean, they'll go after the sugar just as much or even more than cocaine. It's
Exactly.
that addicting.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
and the other things they put in too, the additives the enhancers that make the flavors so much stronger. Those are just as bad. They get us really hooked. So talking about rehab, the original definition of detoxing, going to rehab, well, we almost need to put ourselves into food rehab or sugar rehab or, in
yeah,
the
for
same kind of
sure.
way. Mm.
I love that. Let's tie this up with a nice bow and give everyone 3 things they can do to get into that food rehab mindset. Like, because I know
Okay.
I myself have struggled with, getting off of sugar and, it's just so strong a pull. So let's give them 3
Yes.
things that they can do.
Well, I'd love to share that checklist with you that people can do. So I think that's the number one thing is, are there toxins in your home, your diet, your environment? Make a checklist. And if you can
Fantastic.
list over half a dozen things, then, most of us, I can usually do it myself and still find half a dozen things that I can improve on.
Hmm.
It gives you the moral direction or incentive to do something about detoxifying your life. So that would be the number one thing is
Okay.
make that list. Yeah. The second thing, I guess, is do you have any inflammatory or metabolic or any condition that could be possibly related to some kind of toxicity? And see if you can come up with, anything there. I guess that again would be that motivation, getting that motivation in place to do something.
So
Um,
in other words, having something that you can gauge the impact of your changes.
yes, yeah, because having those two things in mind, are there toxins and is there a health issue?
Hmm.
And making that connection or that link. And
Hmm.
then the third thing would be to take action. So look at your fridge and your pantry would probably be the number one things. And then when you're out and looking at food. So taking action, I would say start with looking at your food.
Hmm.
Yeah. And the herbs, looking at herbs to help you with the detox would be sort of secondary to that. But
Hmm.
yeah, taking action was the
Action.
third thing to do. Yeah.
Taking action.
Yeah.
I love
Mm,
that. And
mm.
I think it's a great way to encourage and inspire people to live a clean, healthy, fantastic, vibrant life. I think you're just totally an inspiration to me. I admire the work that you've done. Appreciate you being here. I hope we can do more of this because you have so much knowledge to share with everyone. Um,
Mm.
and can I share with everyone a link to your website and your products? Can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'll share the link with you for that checklist and
Fantastic.
for the detox programs. I can have a look at those.
Fantastic.
Mm. It's
Thank you
been
again,
really
Brett.
wonderful talking to you, Gail. It's an honour and a privilege to speak with you too. I follow what you do, and it's amazing. And I think you're also a pioneer in the field, and it's an honour to be invited to speak with you.
Thank you, Brett. And I hope to see you soon down under.